Station. Match number 2 is here. What do we have in store for us this game? I mean, last one was surely a surprise with the Middle Eastern teams taking a top 10 position. One Asia team up there as well. And of course, those that you expect. The best from NA, some of the greats from EU.
Yeah, and Acorn and Cold, they haven't necessarily had an easy time about it either here at Brutal Beachhead. You know, you get like the soft contest coming out of Andelix and Sato, and this could prove to be very difficult though for Andelix and Sato, because you can tell the commitment is there, but if they want to take this fight to Acorn and Cold, it could be a really difficult one to actually close out in quick fashion.
We have to give all credit to not only Clix and Vino for Clix's performance to stay alive and secure a top 15, but Damo and Resigns, who found even more placement points, ending just closer to that top 10. So a very impressive performance for teams that were contested that game, actually. When you start to do the math on that, that is almost unprecedented.
Well, it was almost like Damo and Resigns were trailing Clix and Veno the entire match, and if they hadn't actually stumbled upon Kishuro as a solo, I almost wonder if things could have maybe gone a little differently there, because that's what really got them tied up into a rough position. But again, hindsight's always 20/20. Currently, we are focused on the now. Chap and Teeny lingering around the Nitrodrome, but Kanata and Cooper close by means that all they can really look for here is just trying to prioritize their mat count.
Yeah, we do know Kanata and Cooper like to rotate closer to Agers and Rise, whom was taken out pretty early last game, so they didn't get to secure that fight, and they found themselves in a completely different battle up against Visual and Braids, and it really didn't go their way. Shortly afterwards, Braids ended up falling to Epic Whale Muzz, so pretty interesting, you know, zone dynamics starting to take shape here, and that's really part of the high level of Fortnite. Game to game, micro adjusting, right? They all know what went well, what went wrong, and it's about adjusting in the real time. But here's Seiyun, here's Kadu against Casper and Prism. Little stands off here, so it seems like this game, similar to match 1, is gonna kind of take its time rolling into the eliminations.
Yeah, Janus almost seemingly happy about the fact that these teams kind of caught wind of each other, because that allowed for him to just slip on by, head on out, a red line rig, make sure that he doesn't get caught in the mix. He's clearly just trying to make a play for that Reboot man, because I didn't see Fixie anywhere near, so almost makes you wonder at the same time. It's going to be a difficult situation for a lot of these teams.
Here's Cammy and Seti. They have angles, they have a little bit of high ground. Meanwhile, King and Phaser getting active right now just outside the Rebels' roost. What is happening here? They seem to be finding their groove right now. It's Visual and Braids once again who are giving some of these duos a really difficult time, making them all second guess whether or not they should be sticking around and fighting them. So, you know, that's impressive.
Yeah, but this is also a really smart disengage from King and Phaser, recognizing the fact Sky Scroll still nearby as well. Rebels Roost just a little bit too poppin' for their interest at the moment, but even hanging around the underworld could pose some issues, because they didn't stick around for the fight. Don't know how much surge damage they've actually been able to accrue at this stage, and once we start to get into that mid-game rotation aspect of the we already saw a handful of teams, even some of the teams that you wouldn't necessarily anticipate to struggle with their surge damage, having issues.
Very interesting. We get to catch up with Batman Booga and Rapid here at the Grim Gate. This has been their drop spot for quite some time, coming out of Major 3, of course, with an excellent performance. You know, if you start looking at the paper trail of Rapid and Batman Booga, everyone's marking them up towards the top 3 as far as the NA teams are concerned. And talking about top 3, it wouldn't be one without Cold and Acorn. They're just putting teams down. This time, they do finish the fight up against Andelix and Sato. They don't let them escape.
But now something that Sato and Andelix are potentially going to have to start considering is, if this keeps going in favor of Acorn and Cold, if they continue to take the fight to them, do you switch for day 2? But I think we still got a few more lobbies to work through before that really starts to become the real question mark here. For Stash Malibuca, though, starting off somewhat on the right foot here at Restored Reels. One elimination already. Curious if one of those is onto either Alex or Worthy.
Yeah, something happened there, but Bolts and Bryce are in a fight right now. Little build-off happening here. This is a pretty intensive early game fight for, given the situation, a Zone 1 Sky base going on here. This is going to be a full-on reset if it doesn't end fast. It's up again, Vico and Clixie. know, obviously our second place coming out of game 1, very much fired up, very much confident.
Bryce and Bolt are not going to fold here, though. The forecast tower, the weapons bunker that spawns nearby Dupenhazen, where Bolt and Bryce like to land. And this is something that, you know, they were willing to contest Reet and Ritual for when it was Reet and Ritual at Reckless Railway. So now Vico, Flixie haven't taken over that position. And it's funny because you ask Vico in the player lounge last night, hey, what do you think about the forecast tower? He's like, that's my forecast tower. You ask any of these players who are actually trying to contest, they'll always tell you the same thing. That's my forecast. And yet, Vico, Flixie, they find themselves stuck because Bryce and Bolt either need to get eliminated or forced out here. Whoever controls the NPC is going to win.
And it's pretty incredible. You got to talk with Vico. I got to talk with Bolts and Bolts' brother, and they had nothing but positive things to say and honestly confidence about the fact that this is their forecast tower, and he's here, and he believes that paired up with Bryce, they are a perfect combination. So very interesting to see that both teams very much feel like they're entitled to this drop. Vico and Flixie seem to be the first, of course, boots on the ground here. They're going to secure the card, which means they have everything that they need here to go ahead and be the one to get the first dibs. But Bolt comes in, takes down Flixie from up above. Whose tower is it?
Vico might have that key card, but how long can he really hold on to it? He's trying to just get out of dodge at this point, creating as much space as possible. But you know Bolt and Bryce, now that they've isolated Vico by forcibly eliminating Flixie, they're going to chase him. They do not want to let him escape with that forecast key card.
And this is not just an elimination. This is not just a player. That is someone who holds the keys to every single storm for the remainder of this game. It is worth so much more than just a set of points. Bolts and Bryce have to think long and hard, and they end up easing off for a second, but it's because Clone and Kromsu is waiting for them, and Bryce is going to be one of the first to fall now as he gets ambushed.
This was almost like an unexpected gift. Clone and Kromsu were situated exclusively for the bunker, and yet when Vico tried to escape because he recognized the fact, hey, I've just got to play for the reboot. I just need to get Flixie back into this game. We'll deal with the forecast later. But Kromsu and Clone, dude, too slick with it.
That was just dirty right there to get boxed up. But look, Bolts has the card, so he actually ends up finding Vico potentially here, or no?
Vico dropped it when he was running.
He ends up dropping it just so that he doesn't, you know, bring that heat with him. So very, very interesting turn of events here.
But sure, you might have forecast secured, but at what cost? Because realistically, if I'm Kromsu, I'm not letting you escape. And that's the thing, Vico knew that there was no reason for him to continue trying to hold on. He did not have the materials to feasibly escape unless he gave up that key card.
I actually love that we got to see him drop the key card as well, right? Just saying, hey, look, you can have it, man. My hands are in the air. White flag is waved. Go ahead, take it. And he plays for another day. That just really shows you what this tournament means, right? That's not an interaction you'll have in any regular game, right? There's just something so prestigious about the Fortnite Global Championship that even the players give respect to one another like that. It's incredible to watch.
Wow, this is looking like a menacing situation building up currently, though. Clix, Veno, Acorn, Gold, Chap, Teeny, Gammy,
oh my
Zeddy.
gosh.
I don't think we could ask for anything better at this stage, but fact of the matter is, all these teams are just fixated on one thing, and it's likely the weapons bunker.
And you hear it, it's opening up right now, and Clix and Veno the first to fold as they recognize, hey, there are 4 teams here. This is not the greatest idea. They double back to the campfire. They'll get their chance at the bunker, right? They'll be able to pick up some scraps, get their attachments, but first, sit things out, let things settle.
I like that flyby though, Janus and Pixie, so it looks like Janus's rescue mission was a success. He was able to make his way towards a reboot van, but again, you have to start to wonder what kind of damage was he able to collect prior to losing Pixie. And now, Reckless Railway is heating up one more time because Vico doubled back, brought Flixie into it, but now Shadow and Virgo trying to see if they can pose a threat.
Listen, Shadow, someone I've known for a long time. I've followed his career closely. He is a very, very scary player once he starts to get situated. Game 1 jitters are out of the way now. Him and Virgo have been nothing but successful as a duo here. But wait a second, Vico and Flixie, as we know, again, are EU's best right now. Clearly some of the strongest fighters on the region. And then you have OCE's Dayanith and Tinka, right? Champions of OCE lurking nearby, seeing what's happening here. Trying to put OCE's stamp on it.
But Vico and Flixie, I mean, we're talking about you major 3 winners at this stage, right? You've got to imagine the level of confidence. Even when you talk to either of them, they are just reeking of confidence, essentially, and for good measure, because Vico, Flixie, they've been successful. Despite the fact that Vico was incredibly low on material count as well, he's still able to stave off Shadow and Virgo, and that is not an easy feat by any means.
Jumping to the other side here, Dukes and Sphinx trying to figure out what's happening down here south on the zone as things are just starting to develop. Clearly shots are coming in from teams in the distance. Meanwhile, Queasy has that high ground. Chap though lurking up, trying to see how he can possibly get involved. Teeny already sitting on the base for a moment there, you couldn't even tell.
I don't even know if it's Queasy that's in danger nearly as much as what it might be Thomas HD when he tries to work his way back towards the surge base he has with Queasy. You can hear the Monarch pistol, shots flying out overhead. Thomas making his way back towards him, but he scouted it out. Managed to throw up a wall just in the nick of time. Queasy also on high alert now. But Chap, Teeny, they've made enough noise. Other teams in the distance actually trying to take side shots at them.
Gotta respect Thomas HD's ability to not only see them and react faster than they can land a shot on him, but to also get up to high ground.
Nothing too.
Before it was too late. And look, they're gonna just go ahead and get off of there. They're like, wait, that team, they wanna fight? No, we don't need that. They give them the respect. They back off the restored reels. They play for center zone now. And this is a very, very good early rotate to go ahead and find a new position here, find some new real estate, if you will. Meanwhile, at the Grim Gate, we have another Rise in Yuma coming out of Asia, representing here last game. Phenomenal performance, ending up towards the top. 8 eliminations as well. This game off to a hot start with 2. Look, we look away, we blink for a second, and the double headshot onto Phaser.
The lineup is just nasty. You can just tell that Thomas HD and Queasy probably ecstatic about that loot llama they essentially just picked up from the knock.
Yeah, I don't even know if they want to cross over to pick up the loot. At this point, it would end up being all too risky with King nearby, but Chap and Teeny haven't stopped their pursuits onto different duos. I'm feeling like maybe they're not getting enough tags in these fights.
Can also be so disorienting to other teams in the lobby when you're dealing with the likes of Chap and Teeny, because they're just barreling down onto anybody that they encounter. They could care less about the caliber of player that they are dealing with in the process. All they want at the end of the day is the points from the eliminations and to clear out the space to make sure that their rotations maintain their smoothness. But Yanis, layer below, Chap and Teeny are currently boxed up, and they are not the only ones. Premsu, Clone, lurking overhead. Persa, Ed as well. Close enough that they could definitely tango if they wanted to.
Chap and Teeny, 130 below. Just mentioned that they're not finding the tag, and it's very clear, regardless of how many teams they've managed to fight, it just hasn't been successful. But this, so far, looking like the best here. Double armor walls come out. That's going to slow down all of their momentum here. And if I'm being honest, I think they have to keep pursuing it, find a new angle, do something else. They can't afford to stop at this point. Teeny's got a new angle here. He's behind Pixie now. The other duo, basically, that's there is Ed and Persa, who are also very, very weak. It's just not looking good for the Brazilian duos. Not looking too good for EU's Jonas.
But every
behind
time
him, Chap's hurt. Back against the wall, he needs to find the one, and it's so close, but he's gonna be the first to fall.
Pixie kind of reminding Chap, hey, we're familiar with each other for a reason, but Jonas and Pixie, they just had too much of an advantage, knowing that the Storm Surge was trickling in, essentially. It just put too much pressure onto Chap and Teeny. They were just taking recklessly aggressive fights, not methodically calculated ones.
Reminder, Falcons, Teeny, and Chap were your first place team coming into match number 2. They are now down and out, effectively opening up the leaderboards for other teams to start to climb on up now.
Casper Casper and Prism as well. I think that this is a duo that has really caught some pretty big attention given their recent performances in EU. Casper as well finds FKS that flashback moment, but Janus, Pixie especially is in a really rough position, trying to deal with Quanti at the same time as well, but these two know they've just got to disengage. They need an opportunity to get that mech hit off, so Pixie will find a moment here, but Quanti still good pose, pretty big threat. All depends on how Janus and Pixie actually choose to leave from this current position.
Take a look at Epic Whale Muzz right now, also below the Storm Surge here. They just need a little tag. Bring your focus down to that bottom right, that map. We're in zone 5 out of 12, right? So we're getting into the late part of the game. Things are gonna get to real small with the circle, and it's only gonna become more and more difficult if you're one of those teams that don't have heals.
The problem is when you're also a team like Muzz and Epic, you had the shield, you had the white heals, but you're losing all of it because you're just underneath that Storm Surge. Finally, they'll manage to catch a break in the form of damage. And they'll look to try and see what they can scavenge here at the top of Rift Island. Surprisingly enough, mostly undisturbed.
Little update there as Adapter and FKS fully eliminated, so 10th place is out, 1st place is out. Cammy and Seti not looking too great right here. Below the damage threshold as well. Again, what that means is that Lightning Bolt is going to start coming down from the sky. They're going to start losing 25 HP over the course of time. Periodically, it'll start to add up. Flixie and Vico, this is why they're fighting all the teams, because they need to. Otherwise, they will be sent back to the lobby for not doing enough damage. Here it is. Vico gets slammed in on from 2 angles, but Cammy gets crushed by a devastating shot. Vico hits the one that he needs to. Meanwhile, Rise and Yuma jump into the mix here. This is our team in the lead here. Vico, though, is so good that he is putting up numbers up against every single region right now. It's still defending for his teammate.
He's just trying to make sure that he can throw Flixie into a safe position. Revive is clearly on his mind. Armored walls are going to be sent out. Yuma, Rise, they're hoping that they can try to collapse, but I fear the moment has left them. Vico doing so much when it mattered most to hold his ground, and sure enough, the revive is a success. Flixie has been brought back into this battle, and that's going to cause Rise and Yuma to reconsider whether they actually want to take this engagement.
And that was our current 1st and 3rd, or 2nd place teams basically to be going head to head. But let's jump in with Clone and Kramsu right now. Another team very, very desperate here to find a fight. Clix and Epic Whale are the team not so desperate, but ready to defend. But no, they lose the walls first. This is not looking good. But they end up finding the shots, and Clix is so fast. He hits one and then the second before they can even notice what happened to them.
Yeah, you know this guy's been taking some tips from Meno. I mean, he's been forming his own kind of masterclass at this stage.
The edit in, caught by Vino there. The trap was delayed. So good.
That's exactly the kind of bounce back too that you would hope for, especially when you consider game number 1 probably got a little bit more messy than what they'd initially intended. So moments like that can really captivate a lot of momentum for players on the big stage.
You know, you make a great point. The first game was really difficult for them. They spend a little too much time inside the storm. So look, already micro adjustments starting to come in, but Muzz and Epic Whale here. Muzz is down, or sorry, Epic Whale's down. Muzz is by himself. He finds the tags that he needs, doubles back to save his teammate as the Storm Surge was doing damage. And Vidil and Reason are recognizing, wait a second, why did you stop pushing here? Something clearly went wrong. Muzz now has to back off. I don't even think he got to pick up his teammate in time. No, Epic Whale gets finished there. And the development now for Muzz is that he is left by himself with nothing to really work with. I mean, it's all but over for him at this point if Vidil and Reason want to push.
At the same time, though, Muzz is definitely a bit of a solo mastermind. If anybody could look for a clutch opportunity, the real issue that I'm seeing right now, though, MDF, Baka, Pars, right behind where Muzz is currently fixated. And if he wants to press forward, Vidil and Reason on the other end of these walls, it's going to cost Muzz so much if he's able to escape this as far as his builds are concerned. He's already looking low on that material count.
Yeah, you saw him look through the wall. I was like, wait, what's left there? Nothing. And I think that was a mistake because now Varial and Reason can tell, wait, he's still pretty close, and they definitely know he's a weakened solo. But hey, if Muzz can stay alive, he has the zone, he'll be okay for a little bit of time. Placement points are just moments away. Take a look from the other perspective, how the damage ended up racking up there. An excellent tag by Reason, and then the Surge finishes the job there in the end. So very, very close. Had, you know, they not had that problem, they definitely were the team ahead. But here's a team that hasn't really found their footing just yet. Peterbot and Boyo trying to figure it out in match number 2 right now.
Well, you say that, but Peterbot was kind of on a rampage in our first lobby. But this time, obviously, hoping that he can do it alongside his duo, Pipoli, Kayota. They are met with an armored wall. The moment that they try to aggress onto Pars and Baka, and be forced to drop to the low ground, seeing they could try and chop out these floors from underneath, but Pars, Baka, they recognize there's too much desperation from this duo. We don't need to take any sort of risky peeks. We're just gonna stay them back.
They kind of have to, though, but no, Pipoli goes up to the box by himself. Baka and Pars are some of the best to do it, though, and they hit their tags. Literally granted a huge, huge opportunity there to get comfortable and situated in this game now. Meanwhile, Clix and Vino on a huge rotate here across the map. Talk about a night and day position to be in. Eland, material, and much more to work with right now. Clix, though, has to buy some time, get a little healthy here. Starting to run out of shields to work with, though, but still, they get time to regather themselves, to compose themselves for a moment.
The most important part was looking at both of their material counts. That is a strong build count for them to work with, and they're gonna need every bit of it, because when you look at Titans like Thomas HT and Queasy up on the high ground already, just trying to take advantageous shots, and any of these teams that are starting to trickle their way in, trying to see if they can suppress as many duos as possible to those mid and low ground layers.
Well, here it is. It seems like they've been able to catch a little bit of extra information there. Now looking for teams nearby. Bryson Bolt's going to be one of the first to go ahead and be in the line of sights here. But the zone hasn't popped just yet. They know it's got to go north. They're working their way through this build here. The cover's been blown, and they back off. Happy with the few tags, but still, they need more eliminations. Surely more placement points if they want to jump up to top 5, as those teams are still in this game. Meanwhile, Queasy still ramping his way across the high ground, right?
And that's for sure. Queasy, Thomas, they're going to try to hold on to hype for as long as possible. Ideally, the entire game, if possible, like what we saw at Chapatini in the last match. But Acorn Cold, very efficient, found a slight inside rotate despite so much congestion having pooled in the real center of that last zone. But everybody's got to get a move on now. Poyo, Peterbot just doing what they can to stay ahead of the pack. That reveal medallion as well, going to help them pinpoint some of these solos that might be running through these pre-existing builds.
Yeah, those extra layers right there. But look at this, Clix and Vino catching up with a tear there. Peterbot and Boyo find Yuma as well, effectively taking down some of that immediate competition, right? You want to start dropping those players that are up at the top of the standings if you want to jump over them. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be very, very hard to do, but they are doing just that. Meanwhile, the wider shot tells us the whole story. There's an indestructible bridge separating the high ground layers from the lows.
And Vico, Flixie, they didn't manage to find the victory royale the way that they would have hoped in match 1, and now staring down their own demise here. Flixie gonna get knocked. Vico not gonna have an opportunity either to recover this one. Just too much pre-existing pressure. But Peterbot control massive here. Acorn's gonna get caught out, and Peterbot gets the shutdown.
Oh, but someone comes from behind, and down goes Peterbot. Just like that, it's Cold to the rescue basically here, making up for lost time there. And at the end of the day, the real winner here is Cold. He gets more placement points. He gets to heal out now and kind of wait this one out. Meanwhile, Clix is still alive here, working his way through the game. Queasy and Thomas make their way up to the Rift Island. They are looking better than ever. There is so much material to farm back up here as well.
it's looking next to impossible for anybody to try and effectively challenge for high MDF, but we see crazy things happen. Clix, on the other hand, alongside of Benno, they're gonna fall back to back. Trulex and Chicho now seeing if they can try and finagle their way into that top leaderboard placements, but Deal's gonna be the next one they knock. Reason forced to play this one out as a solo.
Game 2 already looking kind of crazy. Reason takes down Merstash there, and he gets to secure the medkit. That's a
Siphon
huge
medallion
pickup right there. The medallion as well to give him that little bit of extra push here. And look at that. Of all the players that came into this game inside the top 5, Chicho and Trulix are one of the only ones standing here now. With 8 eliminations, they have ran their way up the standings and put themselves into this incredible conversation of a team to look out for right now. Rise and Agers, a great performance. Bugha and Rapid show up and get put down, and now it's a top 3, but it's just Pars and Baka down here. Queasy and Thomas have all the time in the world.
Queasy and Thomas are sitting like kings right now at height, just watching all of this catastrophe unfold underneath. Chicho, Trulex, they know they've got to deal with this team on high ground. All you see is the armored walls stacked in the sky. Trulex gonna opt for the medkit play instead, hope that he can outlast Baka in the process. But again, at the end of the day, he's just staring down Queasy and Thomas on height.
They're starting to look down here. They're starting to put some tags in. They see what's going on. It's just a matter of moments. 8 eliminations for Queasy and Thomas. They look up, who's trying to land on us? And of course, it's the one and only coming out the storm, Baka there, who just went with a desperate play. Meanwhile, Trulex down low. If he starts to focus in here, he falls so fast. And Baka has high ground now. This is a little scary, but the tag is so